This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. Welcome back to another episode of this week's podcast. We appreciate you coming back and watching this on YouTube. If you happen to be listening to it then on a podcast stream, we appreciate if you would just go to iTunes or whatever platform you use and give us a 5-star rating. That really does help us advance our podcast and lets other people know about this as well. And if you can give us some sort of a glowing comment, that would always be appreciated then as well. We thank each and every one of you viewers and listeners for coming back week after week and helping to support us with your patronage by giving us your pledges and donations as well. So if you just go to the Magic Word Podcast, there you can see a link where you can then learn how that you can become a friend of the Magic Word and help support us. Well, this week we're going to go back down to Australia. Last week we visited with Tim Ellis in Melbourne, Australia, and we're going back to Melbourne again, where we're going to talk with Dominic Chambers. He has performed on Penn Teller and then later on America's Got Talent, and actually had advanced further than any other Australian has in the past. For AGT. He has always also performed on Broadway with the Illusionists and has his own one-man show there in Australia called A Boy in His Deck. Well, he's going to talk about all of that, plus some of his creative process and a lot of other interesting stories and some fun stories while he was in New York City. Please help me welcome my guest this week, Mr. Dom Chambers, here on The Magic Word. Today we have someone with us all the way over from Australia, and I say all the way over, all the way under, and when we're on top, they're on top. It depends on where you are and what time of the day it is, I guess. All I know is he's future man. He knows what's happening tomorrow because he's way ahead of where we are in Houston, Texas then right now. This gentleman is Dom Chambers, and Dom, or Dominic, has been around for a while, not a long time. He is a young man, and he has, however, acquired a lot of followers. In particular, he's got like over 5,000 followers on YouTube. He's got 20,000 plus followers on Instagram, which I highly recommend Dom J. Chambers. Check that out on Instagram. Some really clever ideas and things that he's got, just some quick videos that he posts up all the time. He has also appeared on America's Got Talent. You might remember the name from America's Got Talent, where he had done a beer act, and he kind of went pretty far actually in that, got up to about 3 or 4 different levels and got into the quarterfinals. And in addition to that, he has been performing, or has performed then in New York with the Illusionists, and also is someone who has had his own one-man show, A Boy in His Deck. And we're going to speak with the man right now. Man, there's a lot to cover right there. Such a lot that you've done in just your few short years. Here he is, Dom James. Hey, Dominic, how are you, sir?
Hey, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad that you could make it. And also, I'm so impressed by your resume. And you're like, what, 27, I'm guessing now-ish?
29, actually.
29, okay.
I'll take 27 too.
Still under 30, and yet all these things that you've accomplished. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. It's been, I've had a lucky few years, if I'm honest with you. A lucky few years. Let's not include the pandemic. That has not been a lucky few years for anyone.
Right.
It's been a terrible couple of years, but before that, I had a lucky couple of years. And I've been able to do a few things with magic, and I'm just super lucky about, the way that things have fallen for me, and the sort of opportunities that this little world of magic and illusion have opened up in my life.
I am curious always about when people who are from outside of America, of the United States, compete on America's Got Talent. How was it that came about? Obviously, it's the world's largest stage, if you will. They keep calling it that all the time because you do have this opportunity to see, for the world, for you to be seen. But how did you come about to get on that? You've probably been asked this question a dozen times, but I'm just curious. Why from Australia all the way here?
It's a fair question. They do love that line, don't they? The biggest stage in the world.
They use that, yeah.
It comes about 20 times an episode. To be fair, it's not entirely untrue. I mean, when it comes to variety performance, there isn't really a platform that puts yourself in front of a bigger audience than America's Got Talent that I can think of. So I think there is some truth to that that line, although it gets said 1,000 times an episode. But yeah, I suppose how did it come about for me? I did Penn Teller Fool Us, actually. I made the beer act you mentioned before. It was such a kind of a bit of an accident, that act. I threw it together. I showed it to a few friends, like, what do you think of this? And they were all like, yeah, I think there might be something in this. I performed it one time at an event. I recorded that performance on video, and just thought I'd try my luck and send that one video through to the Penn Teller Fool Us producers because of some of the feedback I got from it. They said, hey, do it on the show. I said, I've only done it once. It probably isn't a smart idea to do a routine that you've only done once on international television, like Penn Teller Fool Us. But I wasn't very smart at the time. I'm still not. So I did it. I just did it. And, it was at the time, it was very much a work in progress. But as I guess, I consider my work to be a constant work in progress anyway. But, it was pretty well received from that. I got a call from the producers at AGT and they gave us the invite. And that's how it happened. I said, yep, I'll do that. And fortunately, the routine was a little bit more, well prepared for America's Got Talent. And it seemed to, do well with the audiences.
Was it a different routine that you presented for America's Got Talent than you did with Penn and Teller?
It was the appearing beer trick, but it was, properly developed and a bit more thought and been put into the routine itself. And, it was actually had been rehearsed. So yeah, it's definitely a better version. If people ever ask me, what do you do? What's your, I'm a magician. Oh, have you got a video? I'll make sure to put them towards the America's Got Talent version of that routine, not the Penn and Teller's one. It's sometimes, you know what it's like. Sometimes it's hard to look back on videos of yourself performing. It is definitely the case with that version of the routine, if I'm honest with you. But yeah.
Yeah, well, in working with Penn and Teller, that's another thing. This was this the one that was when they were doing it in Britain, or was that when they were working in the United States? The current one?
No, it was United States. I think I couldn't tell what season it was. Season 6, 7. No, maybe 5. I've lost track. But it was at the theater in Vegas.
But you had sent a video in, and Mike Close and Johnny Thompson, I guess at the time, had looked at that and said, "Hey, this is a good act."
Yeah, that's right. They didn't even say it was a good act. They just said, "Come do this on the show." So I don't know what they thought of it.
Now I've heard, and I've talked with Mike about this, sometimes before. And when people come on to Penn and Teller, sometimes they will say, "This is good, but can you tweak it this way?" Or here's another performance suggestion. So did you find that behind the scenes that they were helping you a little bit to make it a real fooler?
Not so much. They were actually pretty happy to let me, take control of the act and do what I put forward. I remember Johnny Thompson gave me this one piece of advice. He said, "Dom, this is a good act. It's very expensive to be producing, 7 glasses of beer every time you perform it. Those expensive acts. Let me give you a tip. There was a magician who I won't name, but he did name this magician, who used to perform an appearing glass of beer at the beginning of his act. I think if I'm getting the story correct, this magician may have been homeless. So what he did to save the money was to actually urinate in a glass before the performance. So that was the one tip that Johnny Thompson has ever given me for my magic career, is to not put beer in the glasses,
but to put urine in there.
Yeah, basically. So thanks for that advice from a legend. There it is. Hilarious, man.
I assume that you didn't take his advice?
A couple of times, but mostly it's beer.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, because you're having to pour out the beer, I guess, at the end of the act and everything then too. Did you end up fooling him and then coming to Vegas to perform?
No, it was not a fool. I think I was pretty, aware that was going to be the case going into it. The act is, I love performing. It's a lot of fun. I don't think it's a magician fooler though.
Well, I always thought that was something that would be natural in Australia for Fosters, for them to sponsor you and send you all over the country.
I'm gonna have to stop you right there. That is, Fosters. You cannot actually get Fosters in Australia.
What?
In fact, I know, right? It blows people's mind. It's a marketing trick. It is a marketing trick used by Fosters. What's the slogan? It's Australian for beer. It was something like that, right?
Yeah.
I'm breaking it to you right now. There is no such thing as a Fosters in Australia.
So they don't have Fosters on tap?
Nope.
Not any place you've been?
Nope.
Wow.
It's actually nope. it's it's the first thing I'm get offered when I go to the US. Oh, you must drink Foster's. Never had one in my life. So
well, that's weird. So what would be a popular national brew there?
Where I am in Victoria, we've got VB. VB is a classic. Carlton Draft. We've got a whole range. We've got a big beer culture in Australia, so there's dozens. But
is craft beer a big thing over there, like it is in the US?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Especially over the last 5 years, we've seen craft beer exploding. Yeah.
Well, there again, I would think that somebody, particularly a craft brewer, would say, we need to hook up with this guy so we can raise our brand, because you've already got the cachet, if you will,
I have done a few runs of my show before where I was able to, save some of the costs by just plugging what beer it was that I was pouring out of my shoe.
Right.
They were able to supply a few slabs. So yeah, that has been the case a couple of times.
Yeah, that's what I think, like by using those kind of coasters, or perhaps, having your business card on the back of the coaster with their name on it or something, and your name on the other side,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Just, something then a little bit different like that. But then having gone into America's Got Talent, did you have a second act prepared, or were you kind of surprised thinking, okay, well, I didn't know they were going to like it this much and they're going to put me forward, and then it's like I better scurry and find something?
Yeah, it's really interesting because you can have like hours and hours worth of material that works great on stage, works great in a close-up environment. It's tried, it's tested. Doesn't mean it's going to be good for TV. Creating material for TV is a totally different, it's a different game. And I had to look through my catalog material and go, what would work on TV? What is going to serve well, something that I like doing myself, something that is, true to my performing style. It's one of my original pieces, but is also going to please a TV audience and judges on a talent show. So fortunately, I had one other act that I had a few acts that I thought would work, but then there's a bit of a collaboration with the team behind the scenes. I'm not sure how much I can go into with what happens behind the scenes on that show, but you have to come up with something that they think is going to work as well. They want you to succeed at that point. Sure. So a lot of the things that I thought might be great for the show, I was told were not so good for the show. And looking back, that I was given correct information there. So my second act I did on the show was, an act from one of my one-man shows, it was sort of a tailored, modified version of an act to suit the sort of the TV format and to suit the sort of the time restraints you're given on these shows.
That was the thing with tape face?
No, this was Siri.
Siri, yes, right. Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah. After that, I wanted to take a few risks and, try and create something bigger and better and more memorable that I had the opportunity to do with this great sort of production team behind me, with the stage, with, some budget to work with as well. That's why I created a couple of brand new acts, which was Tape Face and the Mega Beer. So also taking a couple of risks along the way. Some paid off, some didn't, but, I was able to create some, I was able to get, 4 original magic routines on TV, and I'm really proud of that.
I've noticed with America's Got Talent, when it goes on into the different weeks, once they come down to the finalists and the quarterfinalists and on up, it seems that the production values go up and up and up, which I'm assuming, therefore, they're giving you an additional budget of some sort in order to provide for better backdrops and curtains and props and dancers or whatever, music and everything that you need. Did you find that to be the case also?
So I mean, I wouldn't have personally been able to afford that mega LED screen with all the faces of me on it. So yeah, production, they have an amazing team, they have amazing resources, and it's able to take your act to probably a level that you might not be able to achieve with your own show.
So do you work hand in glove then with them when it comes to that point? In other words, when usually the person comes out the first time, it's just a naked stage and nothing but you and the camera, basically, and whatever props you might have. But once it goes on and they do have the lights and dancing and the fire, whatever, these kinds of bigger productions have, do you sit down like in a production meeting with them and you give them the idea and they said, well, what if we added to this by having this behind you, or what can we do to help you look better? I mean, did they come to you and help you with that, or how's that work?
Yes, I suppose I don't think I think I can sort of go into this area, because I think, let's take a guitarist, for example, someone who's playing, amazing acoustic guitar, and they might, say, okay, by the end, we've got to make this spectacular. We want
Right.
to make this guy shine. So what we're going to do is he's going to play guitar, but behind him, there's going to be there's going to be a whole heap of, fireworks and, water coming down from the ceiling and really dressing this up. So obviously the guitarist himself has to, compose his act and execute the music, but it's the same with magic. You've got your act, and they've got the team that says, okay, we're going to add some, lights back here, some screens back here, make this look something incredible. And being able to work with that team you don't get that ever. You don't get these resources.
They just kind of draw it, storyboard it out for you. That's what I'm thinking. For example, you had the idea of doing this mega beer and drinking this big vat, and then they may have said, well, what if we put this in an environment that makes it look like a brewery where there are these big vats behind you? And I'm assuming that's part of their production ideas.
Yeah, that's right. So a lot of the I guess the production around what you're doing, you can kind of assume that has been some of their input. They do work really closely with the performers to make them shine and make them look like, like a real Vegas quality act. Yep. That is, I suppose, their goal. They want, acts that look like they could be headlining a Vegas show. And to do that, amping up the production and the set and everything is all part of it.
Well, now, another thing is I know that you don't have to necessarily win in order to get a show, because under contract, they may have you booked out for a year or two. I remember when Eric Diddleman finished, I think in the quarterfinals or something. But when I talked with him, he said, I'm booked for the next 18 months. I mean, after that, some of them were with AGT and others in which they saw him and said, we want you. So he said, I've got next year and a half. It's just every day, going to be here or there, flying someplace. So did you find as you got a little bit higher that you not only got the notoriety from the general public who wanted to book you, but did AGT book you on any of their tours?
So to be honest, I didn't time things very well. The AGT for me, like I'm sure with Eric's, with what happened with Eric was, you do AGT and you've got this moment where you are you're an interesting asset. You've been on TV. People want you at their events, and this definitely was the case. It was great. This happened for me right before the pandemic. So I don't say right before because there was this sort of opportunities for me. AGT led to being part of the Illusionists for me, which was on Broadway. I booked an Australian tour afterwards. I had some great, I had a handful of really great opportunities come up from AGT. A lot of which were then subsequently sort of cancelled and stomped on by this COVID situation. So the timing wasn't fantastic, but it's definitely the case. Getting yourself on TV and getting views and things like that does open up a whole heap of opportunities and windows.
And in that regard, with the Illusionist, was it the producer then who saw that and said he would be great addition then to the Illusionist there on Broadway? So I suppose we got a call from the Illusionists who had seen the AGT act and thought it may have been, something that they'd have on their show, and that was awesome. I was, I'd been going to see the Illusionist shows from when they had started. They would tour Australia regularly, and I would go to all of them, and it was always sort of a bit of a dream to be part of one of these great ensembles with all these stars. It's watching Kevin James and Paul DeBeck and all these masters, Kaylin just getting up there, just really creating this spectacular of magic. I'm like, oh my gosh, imagine if that could happen one day. I didn't think it would. I thought, my magic was a little bit different. It wasn't super illusionist. But then, the beer act came about and I was part of the Broadway show, which, again, is Kevin James, someone who I'd been watching since I was 10 years old. Being on stage with that master was it was awesome. Now, was Jeff Hobson as part of the group at that time too? Or who was the MC or the host?
Paul DeBeck was the host. So from England, he's living in Vegas now. He's one of my best friends and one of the best magicians that I know. He destroys a room like nobody else, that guy. Honestly, I really do think in that Illusionist show, if you haven't seen his toast, his toast routine?
I've not.
Like, this was all people would be talking about after this freaking show. Like, this was a show that had Kevin James, cutting a man literally into two pieces.
Right.
He would, Enzo Wayne, an illusionist from France, amazing illusionist, one of the best illusionists. He does a décolleté chair act that is, I think, the best décolleté chair. Chris Cox, comedy mind reader from the
England.
UK as well.
Right.
Yep, and Eric Chen, obviously FISM award-winning Eric Chen, with one of the great close-up magic acts ever. So it was a great cast. A lot of people who I invited to see that show would be like, "Oh man, that toast thing from Paul to Peck." So yeah, he was the host, and he did a bloody good job.
Now, was the toast thing actually where you're talking about bread as toast, or are you talking about like with glasses, toast to your good health?
Yeah, toast, bread.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And it was a comedy routine of some sort.
Yeah, so he does.
Okay.
He's got this sort of cheeky British style,
Right.
rapid fire one-liners, very, very charming, very, very playful, but also he's got this sort of like little naughty edge to him as well. He's just a great entertainer and performer, and it was a pleasure watching him perform.
Well, one of the big advantages, it sounds like, of that particular troupe was its international variety. It sounds like you had someone from around the world.
Yes, yeah.
Everywhere.
So Eric from Taiwan, Enzo from France, myself Australia, Chris and Paul the UK, and Kevin was the US act.
Right. I was wondering about Chris, by the way. I haven't talked with him since we had locked down, and I saw him perform, because he used to, remember, would lick things in order to get.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. The other day as well. Yeah, not sure if that's a thing anymore.
No, he would hold someone's hand, he'd lick their hand, or he would lick their wallet or something, that was just in order to get a sense of what it was. And I was curious to see how he's obviously must have changed up that act.
Yeah, it might be one of the many victims of the COVID pandemic, as Chris is.
I would say. Now, when you were working then on Broadway, was that the only place that you'd work with the Illusionists, or did you tour with them at all?
I just did the Broadway run. That was maybe a month before the pandemic. So the Illusionists have, I think they've done a couple of shows in the last few months, but that was, like everything else, they had to stop touring.
Right. I think I did see where Kevin was back on the road and trying to tour with that, but I don't know who else is with that. But they also then got the Illusionists 1894 or something, I believe, weren't there? It seems like David Williamson was with a group of the Illusionists for a while that went over to Sydney. I guess you've probably seen them over there.
Yeah, that was a few years ago. I think it was not. Yeah, I can't remember the exact title of the show. It was one of my favorite ones. It had a really, really great cast and had some beautiful production and storytelling, and it's a lovely show.
Yeah, it was a little bit different kind of a feel from what the Illusionist was, which was just, more modern day magic. And I think theirs, again, was themed and storytelling and a little bit different, from what they had there. So tell me, what interesting thing ever happened while you were in New York?
Oh, so much. Endless stories. It was just a joy. It was just such a wonderful cast and great group of people. I was so lucky to have been, not only be part of this show, but be put up with a really great, lovable group of people.
Yeah.
So, a lot happened. There was one particular night. I am terrible with names. It might come to me. In a second, but I performed I think it was maybe the third night of the show, and I performed my Siri act was actually in the show.
Okay.
Just to give a description for people, Siri is my assistant, my magic assistant. She wears a little dress and has a lot of attitude, and ends up performing the card trick and makes a drink appear. I performed this in the Illusionist, and there's a moment where Siri.
Well, explain also that Siri is your phone.
Sorry. I should have made that clear as well. Never assume, right?
Yes.
Siri, my mobile phone, the virtual assistant of Apple, Siri. Yes.
Right. So you have a funny little dress on your phone. Yeah.
That's right. Yes, that's right. So basically, Siri starts interacting with me. Since it starts interacting with the audience, there's a moment where Siri refers to an audience member as a handsome man with bulging biceps, and this man gets involved in the routine with Siri. I spoke to the person's waiting. Now I could have picked anyone. I think this was maybe a 1,500 seat theater. I could have picked anyone from this audience, any person. on this particular night, I just chose someone from the audience who, I suppose Siri kind of chose somebody, but
right.
And he's interacting with her. He completes the routine. After the show, he's waiting outside to say hello. And speaking to this guy, he says, Dom, I don't actually know this. It's just crazy that you picked me because I am the inventor of Siri.
Oh my gosh.
I am the person who created Siri. I'm like, this is, I thought he was having a joke. This couldn't be possible. But no, I picked from this entire audience the person who invented Siri to interact with Siri. He is, I'm pretty sure he is a magician, or at the very least, he has an interest in magic. He's part of the magic community. It's bugging me that I don't know his name. I think his name was Adam. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But that was pretty crazy to have picked him out of every single person.
Did he live in New York, or was he from California and work with Apple?
I think he lived in I think he's from New York. But I believe the story is I don't think he's with Apple anymore. I think he if my memory serves me correctly, he was the person who designed the IP, the product, and sold it to Apple, I think, and then went on to doing similar things with other companies. So pretty amazing.
Wow. What a coincidence, out of 1,500 or more people in the audience.
Yeah, it was insane.
Wow. Anything else? I mean, that sounds like that's a pretty incredible story. But
I mean, with the Illusionists, what can I say? There was, I think what I love is the backstage antics. There's like, if you ever see, you go to a show on Broadway or any musical production or anything like this, right? From, it's always so, you'll always be looking at this show. It's such a beautiful, polished machine. It just operates so smoothly, so swiftly. And you must go, every show must be they must have this down perfectly. But, there's things, even in a show like this, things can happen. Even in a show like the Illusionists on Broadway, things will happen all the time. And that just gave us a lot of joy, to be honest. It keeps it fresh. It keeps it interesting. Before being in a New York theater with these beautiful, lifts, these old school, lifts that take us up to our dressing room, and we're racing up these lifts to get changed for the next act, and having to get back in the lift and going back down. It was a lot of fun. I think to keep things fresh as well, with such a fun cast, a lot of backstage antics, small little pranks played on one another during the shows to keep it fresh for us. And it was just a great time.
That's why I know sometimes there'll be someone who is more of a practical joker, and they will kind of play pranks during the show or something to kind of keep it fresh and throw someone off balance a little bit, knowing that they can handle it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Something kind of like that. Now, was that your first time coming to New York also?
No, I'd been to New York before as a guest, a traveler. I was traveling. I was on holiday, vacation. So I love New York. I've been there a couple of times, actually. New York is one of my favorite cities in the whole world. It is a beautiful city, just so much heart and so much culture, and just the food and the life and the energy to it is just incredible. I think I performed in New York maybe once before. I performed at Michael Chout's night, Monday Night Magic.
Oh yeah.
So that was my probably only time performing in New York. But yeah, I've been to New York before. I can't wait to get back, to be honest. It's probably one of the first places I'm going to come back to when, travel's a little bit more free.
I'm kind of the same way as well. I miss the city. When you're not there, it's kind of like, man, I want to go back to the city again. And I worked also there, Monday Night Magic, years ago, back when earlier, probably 20 years ago. I mean, they've been around for a long time, but so have I. And that's they have a fun venue, even though they've changed different venues from time to time. And Michael's just a good friend, and he's done a lot for magic out there in New York. Now, when you're with also the Illusionists, I would think there are some publicity things that you guys do from time to time, like with the newspaper reporters coming in and certainly going and doing some television interviews or anything like that. Did you have to do some things like that, and you prepared and did some tricks for television, like Good Morning America or TV shows or something like that?
Yeah, I did a couple of really fun press calls. I did the Rachel Ray show. That was really fun.
That's a cooking show for people who may not know, right?
Yeah. She's a cooking show. She also does a little bit of like sort of variety and sort of everyday chat as well.
Chat show, yeah.
But she was lovely. That was great fun. I think it's one of my first times on like American, like sort of studio audience style TV, in that sort of chat vibe. That was a great time. I did like a this was an amazing experience. I performed at the New Year's Eve ball drop in Times Square.
You did? Wow. Where?
So it was for TV. It was for a
Okay.
Steve Harvey was doing, New Year's
Yes.
special. I think he does it quite often.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a couple of spots on there, a couple of like sort of 5-minute close-up tricks for camera and for the hosts, and got to be right in the action for the ball drop, which was something I'll never forget. Those crowds go back for just further than the eye can see.
Right.
So the people who go right in there in Times Square, they've been waiting there for, over 24 hours.
Right.
So to be able to sort of walk through those crowds, get ushered right through, to be able to, do your quick 5 minutes for your camera and be right under the ball is just something I'll never forget.
Did you create a special trick just for that evening?
Yeah, I did actually. I'm trying to remember what I did. I created a couple of special tricks, one of which I couldn't do last minute. We had to cancel it for some reason. In fact, two of the things I had planned, we had to call off for one reason or another. I can't remember exactly why. So it was very frantic. I had a good friend of mine with me, Ruben Morland, awesome magician from New York. He was there sort of helping me on the day. So I think we kind of quickly came up with a few ideas on the spot to fill the slots because of whatever reason. But yeah, I can't entirely remember what I did. I think I did something with an ice. I made an ice beer block or something like that. But yeah, it was, to be honest, I was more focused on just being a part of
the experience.
Yeah,
and kind of being there. And that had to be a little bit different because obviously it's going to be 24 hours ahead. I mean, it already happened in Australia prior to that. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so what I was going to ask you, when you do come up with these different ideas, it seems like most of what I have seen and know about you is that you're not taking a standard idea and revising it or putting your presentation to it. It seems like they are your own unique ideas. And I know you have a lot of people like Simon Cornell and others who are friends, and Tim Ellis and others around who you might, bounce some ideas off or whatever. But do you come up with things, or do you kind of have brain trust that you kind of discuss ideas, or do you just come up with something in the middle of the night? What's your creative process?
Yeah, there isn't really one process. There is, I think like originality is pretty important to me. I think when I was growing up, I was going to a lot of magic shows when I was like 12 and 13. And I just sort of was like, I had this realization that, oh gosh, so much of magic is like basically the same. And for me, that wasn't like that. I didn't find that interesting. And I kind of stopped going to magic shows for a little while until I saw a couple of really original shows. I'm like, oh gosh, magic can be so original and different. You just need to put a bit of thought into it, and you can come up with creative ideas. And that's where the fun comes for me. It's coming up with something, I think you said that I don't do like sort of variations of other things. That I do that as well. I do, often I will look at something and go, how can I create my own unique version of something that already exists?
Like an oil and water. You say, okay, I got the premise of oil and water. I'm going to take this in a different direction, kind of a thing.
Exactly. And usually I'd like to kind of go, like 3 or 4 steps away from where it was, rather than just, adding my own script to it or whatever. As to what is the creative process, there is no one, there's so many different paths up the mountain in this case. Like you mentioned a couple of really great names there. Simon Cornell, he's a genius and someone I trust in terms of a magic brain more than anyone. I'll often run ideas by him. Tim Ellis, another genius that like he is somebody who will, 99.9% of the time be right about something magic related. You'll say, what about this, Tim? Is this idea right? And he'll go, no, it's not, but just do this. And he will fix it. I don't know how his brain works like that. It just does. So yeah, I'm really lucky to have this kind of like, I guess you call it a brain trust. Collaboration in magic is like, or in any sort of creative world is like super important. Right. Particularly, magic is something that requires second and third opinions, because you do not know how good a bit of magic is going to be until you put that in front of an audience.
Right. That's what I was thinking again about the Illusionists. Whenever they had seen you do something, once you start performing that, I wonder if the director then was saying to you, "Wait a minute, Dom, I want you to, take middle of the stage. I want you at this point to, go stage right, or you need to pick this up or move this way or something." Were you getting some direction from other people?
Yeah, there's an amazing director of the Illusionists. Neil Dorwood is his name. He was great to work with, and he was always happy to offer, his advice and ideas for your act. But they're also very, they at the Illusionists, they're very sort of respectful of your routine that you've developed and created. They don't want to come in and change and trample on it too much. They want to let they give you they give their performers the opportunity to just go on stage and kind of shine with their acts that they've developed and honed. But on the same page, they will offer some, ideas and suggestions, and you can take them and leave them as you like. But most of the time, Neil is another person who was basically always right with his ideas, and you'd follow his lead.
Right. Well, and that's what I was thinking, that whenever you're working with your own show, I mean, I was thinking, for an example, with David Blaine, that our friend here from Houston, Danny Garcia, has been his right-hand man, and he kind of helps him with some ideas and production value and creative side of that and everything too. So that's why I thought perhaps you might have some people like that whenever you're performing, who kind of give you an objective viewpoint, as well as throwing in some ideas and saying, what if you took it this way or whatever. So
I'd love to have a Danny Garcia. Wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
He
helped me actually when last time I worked at the Magic Castle. In fact, I remember Simon coming back in the dressing room. I was working close up there, but going into that, I had performed my set I was working on at our club meeting, and Danny was there. And afterwards he said, you might do this, this, and this. And I took every one of his ideas and incorporated that, because he was absolutely correct. The guy is brilliant, so it's like, if you're saying it, I mean, funny thing is, I've known Danny since he was in high school. I mean, he just as a kid, as he was kind of developing this whole thing and what he had been doing. So we've been friends for a very, very long time. So it was just, but I saw how he developed and knew how brilliant that he had become and is. And you need to take advice from people. Recognize when someone is giving you something, some gold. Don't just say, thank you, but no, you got to listen to it.
100%. I think, you take every bit of advice. It doesn't matter who it's from. You take every bit of advice with a bit of a grain of salt. You don't take it as gospel. But there are some people who maybe you just trust their advice a little bit more. You need that. You need people who you can trust. I think, you made a good call on someone like Danny. I think Danny would most of the time have some pretty good advice.
Yeah. Just like Simon would. Simon, I'm sure Cornell has just a lot of great ideas and things. I mean, I love watching him perform. He's just got his own unique style, and a good presence on stage. I just think he's wonderful.
He is. He is. He just gets, how to make something impossible, really impossible, right?
He makes it mystery. It's not only entertaining, but that's what magic should be. I mean, it should be not only just entertaining, but there should be a mystery that is revealed. Or not revealed. I mean, that the audience realizes something happened there, as opposed to later being confused. Wait a minute, what happened here? When that vanished? Wasn't there something back over there? It's clear, what he does. I mean, there is a magic moment that he creates.
Yeah, 100%. And he just, he will take something and he will work at it for years. He will just keep making it better, little improvements. He will constantly just tweak and make sure, like, his attention to detail. That's something I've learned from Simon, is, every little thing about how you stand, how you hold an object, where you hold an object, where it's more interesting. Like holding a coin in front of your eyes is more interesting than holding it in front of your neck. Like his attention to detail is like no one else in magic. And I think we can all learn from that, because all of these things add up. They all add up and really do make the difference. And that's why I think, watching Simon Cornell, it's such a treat.
That's one of my favorite quotes by Henning Nelms. That was, attention to detail is the essence of showmanship.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And you were talking about holding up that coin. It reminds me of one of the Instagram things you did with the coin, where you're flipping the coin around and it's up, in your face level, instead of being down here, that you're actually, holding it there, where you say, okay, it's heads on both sides, and then you flip tails or whatever.
It's funny enough, it's actually one of the things I was considering when I was filming that exact video, was that tip. It's
was that right?
Yeah, 100%. Exactly that. Yeah.
Okay, that is funny. Well, that's another thing. Whenever you're coming up with those things, do you set deadlines for yourself? That was what I was going to ask about, part of your creative process. Is there something like, again, like for Instagram, like with my podcast, I have every Thursday morning I release it. So I've got different, it's a shark. It's a never moving thing. I have to have more and more content. Same thing I think with Instagram. You got followers and you want to get more and more followers. And again, with 20,500 followers that you've got then right now, you're constantly having to come up with something else. Do you create something then each week so that, or is it just as it come up, you might have one a couple days in a row and then be 2 weeks later and then have another one or something, or what's your process there?
I have a complicated relationship with deadlines because on one hand, it forces you to do the work. It forces you to get it done. Is it, I could be wrong. I think it's Parkinson's law, which is, you will do the thing in the amount of time that you've set yourself to do the thing. No matter what it is, if you've set yourself 1 day, it will take you a day. If you set yourself 3 days, you will do it in 3 days. Parkinson's law. So in that sense, it's really good. We need deadlines. It gets your ass into gear.
Yeah.
The problem I have with deadlines is that it can, if you are setting yourself too tight a deadline, it can, affect the quality of what you're coming up with. Like if you are forcing yourself to, I have done one, creative challenge in my life that was, I'm trying to create a magic video every single day for 2 weeks. I did it for 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm not doing it for longer. For me, that's going to, I didn't want to, I see people doing, there's a guy from Australia called Vincent. He's an amazing magician. He's done a lot of work with cube magic. He's one of the best cube magicians in the world, honestly. He did 100 days of magic and they were all original ideas. They had to be original ideas. I'm not talking like 100 days of magic where he would perform, a snap change one day and then a French drop the other day, and then a trick he bought from in the magic shop. He did 100 original ideas. I cannot comprehend like how exhausting this would have been as a creator. But for him, he from it, he created, 5 or 6 really, really great ideas, which have now become part of his act. I guess my point is, of those 14 days that I did, there's two ideas that were good. The rest were pretty like awful and half-baked kind of ideas. And that was something that I acknowledged and was happy to sort of accept and say, hey, look, I'm not going to not everything I'm going to put out in these 2 weeks is going to be gold. But yeah, that's how I feel about deadlines, is that, if you are forcing yourself to put out a social media video every single day, are you allowing yourself the time to breathe and to think about and really sort of polish your ideas and expand on your ideas? Don't just take your first idea as the final version of something. It can be developed. It can be enhanced. When you're posting something on social media, well, the version that you post, that is the idea. That is the final idea. You've put it out there. There's no more modifying that idea because it now exists. It's not like trying something on stage where it's there forever. Exactly right. So, that's how I feel about deadlines. They can be great, but they can also be awful, but we do need them either way.
So on Instagram, do you then self-impose deadlines, or do you just put them out as you want to? No, I don't. There's no deadlines. Unfortunately, the algorithm kind of sets a bit of a deadline. I'm starting to learn the more that I'm doing it. I don't love social media, to be honest. I do it as a creative exercise more than anything, to sort of make sure that I'm, especially with limited performing over the last few years, I've been creating more videos to sort of, make sure that I'm testing my creative muscles. And every now and then I will actually come up with a good idea that may end up being something in my show. But, you have to, if you want to, engage with people on social media, put out regular stuff. That's just part of being on there. That's true. Part of the way social media works. Yeah, there's no rules. I'm not saying every 3 days I've got to create a video. Every week I've got to create a video. It's more just when I'm feeling that or if I have a great idea, great, I'll make it. I will act on it. I won't sit on it. I won't dwell on it. I will that day go ahead and make the thing. But also if, there's a little bit of panic beginning to set in, well, I'll go, oh gosh, I haven't done anything for a little while. I'm feeling a panic. It may force me to come up with something. So that's the rules. A couple of things come to mind. One is there's currently there's a television documentary on Disney Plus, I believe, or maybe on Netflix. It's about the Beatles, their final presentation, and the deadline they had for like 2 weeks to come up with this information, stuff that was going to be an album for a live performance they were going to be doing. Have you seen that yet?
I haven't seen the documentary yet, but I can't wait to see it. I've heard great
Absolutely
things.
amazing, because you can see they didn't seem to be in a big hurry from the standpoint there wasn't a lot of angst, but they were sitting around, they were strumming and playing, and then just kind of like we were talking about a moment ago, they were kind of going back to the beginning. Said, remember we were in Liverpool, we were working in that little underground pub down there, and remember, John, we wrote this thing. Oh yeah. And then they start bringing this back and putting some new life into some of what was in their earlier works that they've never really published, and then one that might lead to something else, but it's just the creative way of, because they had a deadline, that they were able to get something out that they hadn't been together for a long time. It's like, we enjoyed this last time we were together and did a live show. We're going to do a live show, but we got to do something new and original. And anyhow, and so this was a documentary where they had the cameras on them the whole time, 24/7 basically, and you get to see them talking with each other and learn the creative process. I'd recommend that. It's really, I think, for any creative person.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely intending to watch that in the next few weeks. Everyone's talking about it. One of my sorry, yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, one of my favorite examples of that, I love the show South Park.
Oh yeah,
have you watched South Park?
Oh yeah, I do. There's that new announce about the COVID South Park where they're grown up now.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
They when they write a season of South Park, they go in with no plans. They write an episode week by week. They say, we have 10 episodes to make. We're going to make it over 10 weeks. At the end of the week, that episode gets released on TV. So you often see them working up until the very last minute before they're submitting this episode to be aired within 30 minutes.
It's very current from that standpoint. Yeah,
exactly right. Well, that allows them to be topical, which has been part of their great success over the last few years. But
right,
I mean, there's another good example of deadlines working.
Well, here was another thing too. That was a discussion I had with Andre Cole many years ago, where he said he was in college and he had decided he's going to invent 3 new original ideas, illusions, per day. He said, I'm not going to go to sleep at night. I'm going to college. I'm, studying, getting out my homework and everything else, but I'm also going to create these 3 ideas, with the caveat that it has to be done. I mean, that it's a practical method, but it may not be widely available, but you can get your hands, you can make it. And also that if money meant nothing, in other words, that you had to, this was long before 3D printing or anything like that, obviously, but if you had to make something and you had unlimited sources to get this or wherever, it can be done, kind of a thing. And so he was keeping notebooks of all these things, and which he came back to then in later years. I mean, he was just another creative genius. But my point is, he forced himself to be creative with that daily deadline of 3 new things, throughout college. It was amazing.
Yeah, I love that. And I bet, his notebooks would be just full of gold. And also crap.
A bunch of crap.
I'm sure there's a lot of crap, but that's it. You have to allow yourself to come up with crap, to come up with good stuff as well. Just accept that not every idea is going to be gold. Right.
That's the thing, I think, in life, that some people, I don't mean just magicians, but people in general, if they have a failure, they don't realize that's part of success. You're not going to be successful unless you had failures, because that's how you learn and how you get to the point where something does work. It's like, okay, what was that about Edison, of having, I don't know how many hundreds of things that didn't work before he got to the one that did. But, each one was a step that he had learned, okay, I don't want to use that kind of filament. I'm going to now use tungsten. Oh, that works, but he had to, keep going forward and don't be discouraged. I had a student one time and he dropped a thumb tip on the floor and he thought, oh, you know how that's done. And he just stopped in the middle of the show and he was done, because he was so frustrated. It's like, you obviously you can get by that. You say, what was that? Oh, kick it out of the way and whatever, keep moving on. But he was just at a early enough part of his career. This is one of the first times he was performing for people. He was very nervous when that happened, so much so that he quit. That was the last show he ever did. He stopped taking lessons and he decided, okay, this is not for me. I can't do it.
Yeah. It's that's tough. There's this great story in Australian magic. I think I'm okay to tell. I'm going to tell this. I won't name any names.
There you go.
Okay, so it wasn't a thumb tip falling on the floor. I could be wrong, but I think it was at a magic convention. and in front of an audience of magicians. And there was a magician performing on stage of some reputation, and he was performing a magic square. So his version of the thumb falling off was just filling out all the numbers incorrectly. He'd incorrectly done the magic square, and there was a moment where he realized
this isn't going to work.
He realized he'd done this wrong. He looks at his numbers. He goes, "Okay, this is entirely incorrect. I've done the calculations wrong. Whatever." So here's a tip for anyone out there who's in this position. Your thumb tip's fallen off. You've lost the card in the pack. You've filled out your magic square incorrectly. Don't panic. Just do what this guy did. Fake a heart attack and fall to the floor. And then everyone will just feel sorry for you and never know that the trick's gone wrong,
Oh, well, that's a different way of handling it, I would say. I once had my magic square go wrong, and I was off by 1 or 2 numbers in each way. But like the first one went fine, and the next one was like, yes. And then it's like, uh-oh. But so I just said it so quickly, and this equals 89, and this equals 89. And I was just going through, and this equals 89. 4 plus 11 plus, that equals 89. So it's like, as I was doing, I thought, no, if anybody is really following my math, they're going, no, it doesn't.
It makes you wonder, like, what percentage of the audience you got away with that for. Yeah. And then it makes you wonder, what else could you possibly bluff and get away with with magic if you deliver it with confidence. Yeah. It's the old, if you walk into any venue wearing a hard hat, a fluoro vest and a clipboard, you can get into the backstage of any theater in the world, they say. Right. Just have confidence and people will just believe your confidence. I wonder what we can learn from that on stage. If you just say something with confidence and do it, they'll go, oh, yeah.
Must be true. That's right. Yeah, if you say it and say it with confidence. Well, listen, before we close, I still want to, there's a big area of your life I really want to talk about here for the next few minutes. And for those who are watching, you can see that I'm wearing an Erdnase t-shirt, Erdnase University t-shirt over here then too. So those who aren't watching, I just explained that. If you're just listening to the audible side of this, the point being is I understand that you have had a successful one-man 90-minute show with nothing but cards, and it's called A Boy in His Deck.
Yeah, so I've had I've written 2 one-man shows that I'm pretty proud of. The first one is sort of a collection of my best of. It's called Fake Wizard, formerly known as Random, now known as Fake Wizard. Is sort of my best of. It's kind of just an assortment of bits and pieces that are unrelated, and then they kind of all come together in a weird, absurd way. I have so much fun with that show. It's ridiculous.
Does it have a storyline like of your life since you were a boy?
Yeah. So not yes and no. It sort of has little bits and pieces that kind of seem unrelated. And kind of come together at the end in a sense, but it's just a fun sort of like series of magic vignettes that are off the comedy. They're absurd. They have characters. They have also my best bits like my beer act and Syria in there as well. My most recent show is A Boy in His Deck. It is a story. It is a narrative-driven show, which does have a sort of consistent storyline telling about. Based on truth. There are some, there's a bit of creative freedom in the show to sort of allow me to expand on some of the ideas I want to explore. But it's basically a card magic show. It's a stage card magic show.
Wow.
And there's really only, I think I can say this, it's only really 2 what I would classify as card tricks in this show, even though everything is using a deck of cards or cards. I wanted to try and create a show which was entirely original with cards. So I think there's maybe 1 or 2 routines in there that are at least built off something else, but everything else I just wanted to come up with this entirely original ways to use cards and show that cards can be this really exciting and interesting prop that can be used beyond what we ever thought we could. And I have so much fun performing it. It's, to be honest, it's very immature. It's juvenile. The humor is childish, which is, if anyone knows my work, that's basically what it is. But it's a lot of fun, and it's I'm actually performing at it again in a month's time, a rewritten version of the show. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun creating, something that has a sort of, it's a really theatrical magic show that has, a storyline, a set. It has, I guess some themes and also tells my story, part of my story growing up as a teenager, and the story that has shaped the magician that I've become today. So yeah.
I assume that you had some other people who were consulting with you on that, or is this just all out of your mind and then later somebody's worked with you, or?
Yeah, so this one, I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, like I just think that direction and collaboration is everything in magic. It's so important. This one, I didn't really have any official directors, but I had 5 or 6 unofficial contributors, I'd say. People I trust, who I would send early versions of the script and send videos of the routine and workshop some of the routines along the way. So yeah, it's really changed a lot. Some of those names, a lot of the names we've mentioned in this interview, Paul DeBeck was one of the first people to look at the script in the show and was able to provide his comedy input and work out a few of the angles. Lawrence Lung is one of Mentalism's best kept secrets. He is from Melbourne, from where I live. He's a TV and radio personality, comedian who does some of the best mentalism you'll ever see. And he's really great at, he does a lot of comedy shows that have this sort of story going on in the background that you don't really know about, that all comes together. Structure I really like in magic and comedy, so he was able to help me out with that sort of things. Simon Cornell, another name, who was able to look at the magic of the show and go, this would make this stronger, this makes sense here. So, I guess that's a bit of advice I will always give, is just take as much advice as you possibly can from people, and find these people who have different skills and pick, get the best from them, and also give it back, use your skills and your talents and what you can do well. And when they ask and when they need, you can be there to offer them, what they have been able to do for you. And together you'll become better magicians and performers.
And what kind of a theater? Is it something that's in a casino there, or is it hotel, or what kind of a banquet area?
So it's actually only done, this show's actually only done one run at the moment, before we actually went into another lockdown. My state, Victoria, #1 locked down state of the world. Yes, we did it. So it's been a quiet couple of years of performing. So Australia has a really great festival circuit: Melbourne Comedy Festival, Adelaide Fringe Festival, Perth Fringe Festival. There are also some smaller comedy festivals like Sydney Comedy Festival, which gives producers, performers, and artists the opportunity to produce their own show. These are open festivals. Anyone can put a show into. It's like the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Yes.
But what that means is that anyone can put their show into the festival, right? There is no curation. There is nobody saying.
But you have to find your own venue. I mean, there are certain places that are open, but then you have to go on contract for that, right? And then you promote it.
That's right. To add to that list, because Tim Ellis will be mad at me, the Melbourne Magic Festival, an amazing festival that I'm sure we've spoken about, which I may be doing this year, hopefully. So of course you then have to find a venue that is part of that festival. The Boy and His Deck show ran at a sort of it was called the Garden of Unearthly Delights. It was basically like, if you've ever been to Edinburgh Fringe Festival or Fringe Festival, there are these kind of pop-up venues, these almost like carnival like feels of food trucks and entertainment and rides and stuff, but also they make these amazing like sort of pop-up theaters, and these aren't just like not just circus style tents. These are really beautiful theaters that they've produced, they've put together in the middle of basically what was a field. So
seat about how many people?
This year, I mean, anywhere from 50 people to 1,000 people.
Okay.
So it's a real range.
I know that in Edinburgh, they are looking for different venues, and they have them as small as, and I've heard this as a fact, they actually performed some shows in a car. So there'd be somebody in the front seat, that'd be performing. There'd be somebody beside him, and two or three people in the back seat,
It's great. I love it. Again, I'm not sure if it's a COVID-friendly show these days, if they'd allow that, but that is awesome. There was a magician who did a limo, actually. That reminds me, in Melbourne Comedy Festival, same idea. Did a limo full of audience members, 10 people max, and it's just that's what I love about these fringe festivals. Is
but you found that the audience really dug that? I mean, they could really get into an hour and a half of just cards.
So it was actually 70 minutes. So to give the audience some, to give me, I wasn't going to put them through 90 minutes of card magic. Okay. I think that is a challenge that that they've been too much. But I suppose the idea was, it was definitely going to be a challenge, but that was something that I wanted to address, was to, from the very top of the show, it's one of the first things I say, was to ask the audience members what they feel about the idea of card magic. I even refer to it as card tricks, because, that is what a layman will often say. They'll say, card tricks, and they will often have these ideas about what a card trick is, what can be done with a deck of cards. And then by the end of the show, they're going, well, that completely blew my mind in terms of what I thought could be done with a deck of cards. He didn't just find my card. He took a deck of cards and did these very absurd, ridiculous things. And, there's dancing, there's like other ridiculous props brought in to combine with the deck of cards. There's some, level of mime and clowning as well within the show. So I think, people don't necessarily see this when they walk out as a show that was card tricks. It is a comedy theater show that involved a deck of cards throughout it.
Well, I would be remiss, obviously, if I didn't mention Derek Delgadio's show of In and of Itself, which has been playing on Netflix. I assume that you've seen that.
Oh, yeah.
Show.
Yeah.
Amazing. Best show ever. And that's basically all card tricks. I mean, there are a few things that are not, but that's basically it. And certainly makes you emotionally involved, with the deck of cards and his life. And so it's just, and yours sounds like it's more humorous than what his is.
Oh, yeah. No, Derek's show is really on another level. That's an absolute work of art in terms of some of those magic effects are just so strong and pure. And oh my gosh, my show is filth. It is just very, very childish, and just me being a bit of a dickhead, if I'm honest, a lot of the time. And that is where I have the most fun, and where my audiences seem to have the most fun. I think you've got to embrace who you are. You've got to embrace your strengths and not try to create something that is not you. I mean, I would love to have a show like In and of Itself, but that is something that is it's just not really
not
me.
It's not
my style, right? Yeah, it's not me, and it's not what I was. Got me interested in magic and performing. I don't think you can put my show in the same league or ballpark as In and of Itself, but I suppose you could say that it does have some storytelling to it. It does have, an arc. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has things coming together, and in that sense, perhaps. But yeah, no, very, very much a sort of piece of entertainment rather than a piece of really powerful art that's going to leave the audience crying like Derek's show does.
I know you have also done some Zoom shows, and there was one. Was it Eric Chen you were working with, and they were getting ready to perform this in China on a Zoom show or something?
Yeah, Eric and I did a show together. I'm sure most of the people listening know who Eric Chen is. Eric Chen won FISM. Last year, won Grand Prix FISM. He has the Ribbon Act, which I think is the best, close-up magic routine maybe ever invented. In terms of something done, just a pure, it's just pure eye candy. It's got a beautiful, simple story to it as well. It's just perfect.
That's the one with the ribbon on the table, and as it goes past the ribbon, it vanishes or changes color to the other side.
Yeah. It's just I think I've probably watched that routine more than any other magic routine. I will happily just bring that up on YouTube and just watch it. And he did that on as part of the Zoom show, and I would actually, when we would so basically, just to explain the concept, he is living in Shanghai in China. I'm in Melbourne, Australia. We wanted to challenge ourselves and put on a virtual show together, which was done from these two separate locations. So often a lot of the magic was done in split screen. Eric on one half of the screen, myself on the other. We created some sort of routines together where we would be performing in in collaboration from two different parts, which was a great creative challenge. And we actually came up with some ideas that have now, there was an idea from that show that has ended up in this Boy and His Deck show, actually, which was which again, another one of the, what we're talking about before about, there's no coming up with things creatively, even if they're not going to be the best ideas, give them a go, because they might end up in your actual show or something
later. Right.
Eric, we also did in this virtual show, we also did our own sort of solo routines, and Eric did his FISM routine, his Ribbon Act live, on camera for people virtually. And this is the sort of routine where you think, virtual magic, I think personally is at its best when you are engaging with the audiences, you're interacting with them, they are offering suggestion solutions. Mentalism's particularly strong on virtual mediums, because it is, people really go, oh my gosh, he read my mind through a screen, right? Otherwise they're just watching kind of what may as well be a video of magic. Now, this is not the case for Eric's Ribbon Act. Let me tell you, this was by far the best part of our show. I would when this part of the show was happening, I would just go to the gallery of everyone watching the show, and I would watch people watching Eric. And it gave me so much joy, just because I knew the routine from the music. So I knew when bits were coming up, and I would anticipate, and just people falling off their seats, just in awe of this pure sleight of hand, just masterclass. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, just please pause this podcast, YouTube Eric Chen Ribbon Act. He did it on America's Got Talent. Beautiful magic.
But I understood there was an issue, I guess, with China shutting down Zoom or something.
Yes. Yeah, it was interesting to try and putting on a Zoom show when Zoom wasn't really a platform that both of us could use. So the way it essentially worked, Eric was being streamed through my computer through Skype. I had Skype calling before each show. I would then, broadcast his Skype feed through my Zoom. It was, it was a complex system that my computer couldn't really handle, but we made it work, and we had a lot of fun doing it. It was an interesting time in both of our lives. I think we'd both, done America's Got Talent and the Illusionists together. We're both hoping to kind of use that platform to sort of thrust ourselves into the next 12 months of our careers, but then it was put to a halt from the pandemic. So I think it was just something that we wanted to do as a bit of to keep ourselves busy, and also and mentally sort of challenged and stimulated, and we came up with a show that we were both pretty proud of.
Wow, that sounds great. Well, listen, I appreciate so much for your time here, Dom. This has just flown by here. The name of my podcast is called The Magic Word Podcast, because I always like to close by asking, what is your philosophy of life? I don't mean a magic word like abracadabra, but what is it that could be a word or phrase? What is it that you live by that keeps you fresh every day?
Oh gosh, it's such a good one. Gosh, philosophy. Okay, let's just pick maybe one thing that I think sort of drives me.
Yeah.
Is I think sort of back yourself. Always back yourself. Do what you think is. Trust your instincts. Trust what you in terms of a creator. Trust what you think is funny. Trust what you think is a good idea, and take a risk. Back yourself, even if you think there's a chance it might fail. Hey, you back yourself and you keep backing yourself. You will fail, but eventually you will strike gold. And that's always been my philosophy in life, is just to trust your instincts, back yourself. If you've got something that you think there may be an inkling of something substantial, or go for it.
Great suggestion. First thing comes to mind is that little alien that David Copperfield had been using for years and years. It didn't work at first, and he knew there was something there, and he kept it in his show and kept working on it. And for years, it's like, nope, I'm not going to give that up, And so, yeah, back yourself and keep working on that. It's great advice. Well, Dom, thank you again very much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely chatting. Always happy to chat magic, and I'm glad we could do it today.
Yes, exactly. So for the Magic Word Podcast, that was Dom Chambers. This is Scotty out. Well, cheers, Dom. I appreciate that a lot. And by the way, I had entitled this particular episode as Cheers, because that's such a multifaceted word, and I absolutely love it. It is more of a British type of a term. Of course, we use it for toasting and well wishes when we are having a drink together. And the fact that he has a beer or two from time to time, I think that is appropriate for him to say cheers with that. Also, cheers is a way of saying thank you. A lot of times when in Britain someone will say, cheers, mate, that will just mean thanks a lot, or it also can mean goodbye. So it's multi-use for that particular. I just love the word cheers. So again, cheers. Thank you very much, Dom, for being on here. Early on, you might have heard just a little bit of a misstep whenever I had introduced him as Dom James. Actually, Dom James is his real name, but he goes Dominic James, but he goes by Dom Chambers as his stage name. So just to kind of put a cap on that, so that way that you understand why that I had referred to him as Dom James when I first introduced him in this episode here. Well, Well, listen, thank you guys again for tuning in. I certainly appreciate it. You know what to do. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't done it already, and we will see you back here then next week. So, until next week, stay well, get booked, and remember to trust yourself, trust your instincts, and back yourself. This is Scotty out. Cheers.